Nayantara, are you there? I think we should start. It's past 5.
Yes, I'm here and ready.
Okay, we have a physical audience here, so
Yes, I'm here.
so over to you.
Okay, we shall start. We also have Saleh and Apurva who've just joined, so this is perfect timing. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be joining us from. Thank you for joining us for this session with Shahidul Alam, photographer, writer, activist, very dear mentor to many of us around South Asia and of course around the world. We will also be joined by Ibrahim Shaz, who is the Secretary General of International Aid Campaign. He's an activist from the Maldives and was part of the Sumud Flotilla as part of the observer boat. We also have here with us Saleh Hijazi, who is the BDS Movement Policy Coordinator, and also Apurva Gautam, who is the BDS Movement Asia Coordinator. My name is Nayantara, and I am based in Kathmandu, Nepal. And today I will do just some light touch moderation to mainly set the stage a little bit and just to keep time. As we know, as of yesterday, all Freedom Flotilla Coalition and 1,000 Madlene's volunteers have been freed from Israel's unlawful detention. But this morning, we woke up to the news of Gaza-based journalist Saleh al-Jafarawi being killed by Zionist-backed militia. We know, unfortunately, that this new ceasefire deal may bring momentary relief, but cannot undo the loss and trauma. And we know that it does not mean an end to the genocide and occupation in Palestine. We know also that our needs to mobilize need to continue, that grassroots, people-to-people solidarity movements around the world must continue to call for accountability, reparations, and justice, and more. We will start this session today with Shahidul, who will share his motivations for joining the 145 others who were all media and medical workers on the conscience as part of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. We will also hear from him about his experience of that journey. We will also hear from Ibrahim Bhai about his experience of joining the Sumud Flotilla. And then we will hear from Saleh and Apurva from the BDS movement, joined by Shahidul and Ibrahim Bhai about the efforts that need to continue. This session is being broadcast live via the Drik Facebook page. We are happy to take questions in the comments section. So if you do have questions, please put them in the comments section of this live feed on Drik's Facebook page. And we will try to get to some at the end if there is time. We will try to wrap up at the most in an hour and a half today. And with that, over to you now, Shahidul.
Thank you for that, Nayantara. Firstly, I'd like to remind everyone here that while what Nayantara said was true in terms of people on the flotilla having been freed, Palestinians certainly have not. And the situation of Palestinians remain much as it was. Certainly, we are very relieved that the immediate bombing and violence has stopped, but there's violence of many forms. The fact that these are people who have been starving for so long means that there will be people dying even if everything stops, merely because of the forced starvation they've had over such a long time. Nayantara talked of ceasefire. Of course, that's a very important development. We must also remember that the ceasefire involves a party, Israel, that, in my opinion, is not to be trusted. And let me give you specific things on that. The highest court in the world, the ICC, ruled on the 26th of January that Israel, the key orders given to Israel were that it should prevent genocidal acts, that it should punish incitement to genocide, it should enable humanitarian aid and basic services, it should preserve evidence, and report compliance. That was on the 26th of January 2024. 28th of March 2024, it reaffirmed the January measures. It instructed Israel to halt military offensive in Rafah, southern Gaza, if it imposes conditions risking physical destruction of Palestinians. It should open Rafah crossing for aid unimpeded across the border. May 20, the third order was given saying that it reaffirmed prior orders. It should keep Rafah crossing open 24/7 for aid. It ensure aid reaches all Gaza areas without hindrance. We pretty much know what has happened since then, what has been happening right now, and Nayantara talked to the journalist being killed yesterday. That essentially was what led us to do what we did, because we recognized that the other options had all been tried. The UN option, governments have been, people have been protesting in the streets continuously over a very, very long time. Pleas have been made, evidence has been presented. There was more than enough evidence for the atrocities that were being committed. It made no difference. Israel just went about knowing that it had total impunity, and that impunity was aided and abetted not only by global leaders in alliance with Israel, but also by Western media, through their reporting, through their non-reporting, and through their active blindness to certain areas. In fact, the flotilla itself was something that was largely blacked out. Now, I should tell you a little bit about some of the people who were on the flotilla, at least on the one we were on. The person who I had contacted to ask if I could go in was Huwaida Araf. She had been on the very first flotilla back in the early 2000s. She was also in Mava Marwara, where 10 of her colleagues, 10 of her comrades were killed, and she joined regardless, knowing that that was a possible outcome. There was one person who was an amputee who joined with that one leg and the stick that remained that was substituted the other leg. She joined just as much as anyone else, engaged in everything as anyone else, took no exceptions in terms of all the duties that we had to do in order to be part of that. There were doctors who, I remember we joined online with people in Gaza at that time, and one of the doctors broke down in tears because she was seeing on the other side colleagues she had left behind who she knew might well be facing death, were facing death. A nurse from Wales, Hugh, he was telling me that every person that he had known in Gaza when he was working there was dead. The last person having been killed 1.5 weeks ago. Yet, these were people who'd entered this flotilla and took on that risk, went along. I should also point out the problems in doing something of that sort. Now, the Conscience, the vessel we were on, was the largest vessel so far that had taken place within all the flotillas, so it was a much larger vehicle for a start. To give you a sense, just under 50 boats with just under 500 people had gone on the Sumud. Our one boat had close to 100 people. So it was very much bigger, and that was deliberately so, because the people within our vessel were largely journalists and health workers. And that was done because we recognized that these were the two types of professionals who had been specifically targeted by Israel. Israel had systematically and deliberately been killing journalists and health workers, attacking hospitals, and doing it with abandon. And we felt that at the least what we needed to do was to show solidarity with our fellow workers, those who'd been killed, those who'd been maimed, injured, and that since nothing else was working, we would put our bodies on the line. We would physically go and try and do what we could. So that also meant that our flotilla was also on that same inference, the most vulnerable, because we were the ones most targeted as a group. The thing to remember is that this particular flotilla had actually been attacked by drones in May earlier this year, twice. The boat was repaired, and that same boat went on. Now, this is a big ship. The owners of these vessels would not be generally amenable to their boats going out to a venture such as this. More significantly, while we as media workers, we as health workers, and other people organizing it had made a conscious decision that this is what we would do, the crew themselves were letting themselves in for a very dangerous mission, knowing that they might well be killed. So we didn't just need a ship, we needed a crew that also was prepared to make those sacrifices. And we say sacrifices because we were taking risks, but in fact, I think the story is not about us. At the moment, we are the ones talking, but the real heroes are the Gazans themselves, the Palestinians themselves, who have continued to resist throughout this time, who resist right now, and who have really shown us what heroism is about. And we can only try to emulate some of what they have consistently shown over this very long period, not just since October 7, 2023, but through the years. They are the ones who've resisted and continue to resist. And this story needs to be about them. In fact, that was what our journey was about, to place attention on them, to bring the spotlight on people who the international media was ignoring, who the global media leaders were ignoring. We felt we had to do what we could by our actions, and words were no longer sufficient. So to give you a sense of where we began, I'd been trying to join the flotilla for many years. It was difficult. It was not a public announcement. There was no public announcement in any form. You didn't really know who it was, who the organizers were. It was through contacts, and there was reason for that, because there was concern about infiltration. We didn't know who would join, and if it was made public, knowing Israel, knowing Mossad, what might happen in terms of who came in with something. In fact, one of the people I was very close to, Yassin, told me at a candid moment, look, Shahidul, we know who you are, but you're asking questions, and that might make people nervous. Being on this vessel, we've done a lot of vetting. We've tried to ensure that we have people who are the right people. But if someone is there asking too many questions, there will be people who'll get nervous. So that was also part of the situation. So I was with Professor Lauren Walsh in New York. I'd gone there because I wanted to assist the Bangladesh government in the UN. I was not part of any official delegation. I'd been there officially before this time. I decided to go entirely on my own. And of course, I had a lot of side meetings. I met up with Lauren, and we were talking obviously about Gaza. And she said, by the way, the ship is about to leave. And I said, I want to be on it. She didn't know who they were. She was able to get me the WhatsApp number of Huwaida Araf, the person who I mentioned. Of course, the first question Huwaida asked was, how did you get my number? I was vetted, just as everyone else. And it started on the 23rd. I got the WhatsApp number on the 24th. Late on the 24th, she said, can you go to Brindisi Airport by 28th evening? Now, Brindisi Airport is not the easiest place to get to from New York, but there was another problem, because I knew that this was a hazardous journey. I didn't know what would happen once I got there. I didn't know how long it might be before I returned, or indeed if I would return at all. So I had responsibilities for Drik, for Pathshala, and the other things I'm involved with, so I couldn't go directly. I had to first come to Dhaka and do it. But of course, the first thing I did was mention to my partner, Rehnama, that I wanted to go. It was important that we take this decision together. She wrote straight back, 100%. So at least I knew that I had that support, which was very important for me. Tried to get a flight as quickly as I could. 3 flights, New York to Amman, Amman to Doha, Doha to Dhaka. Once we got here, we started making plans right away. Checks to sign, documents to do, lawyers to meet, make all sorts of preparations. And we arranged a press conference, and I see some of you who were here at that press conference before. Having done that, I caught the flight to Rome, then 10.5-hour bus ride to Lecce, a train ride to Maye, another bus ride, and a long walk, and I turned up not on the 28th evening, but on the 29th morning when they'd begun their training. And Madeleine Habib, a co-skipper of the vessel we were on, was doing the training. And one of the things we did right from the beginning was prepare for the eventualities that might take place. If we were attacked, when we were attacked, what we would do, who we would look out for, should there be physical harm, who would intervene, whether we would intervene, what our strategy should be, should we get arrested, what we would sign, what we would say. All those things had to be rehearsed over and over again, and we had to do the drills while on the vessel. It's worthwhile reminding you that the vessel we had is not a vessel designed for long voyages. It was a ferry, a large ferry, effectively. So it made short hops. It had no sleeping arrangements. The sleeping arrangements were just for the crew. The rest of the passengers would sit. There were very few toilets. There was no arrangements for running water. There were no arrangements for storage of fresh water. A lot of things we had to deal with, but that's what we had. So we went with it. So we then had to develop habits which allowed us to function within that, in terms of sleeping, certainly sleeping in between the rows of chairs, ensuring that others wouldn't trip, using water very, very sparingly, having very different toilet habits, a whole range of things we had to do. But while all this was going on, because the crew was a crew operating the vessel, it was not designed to take care of 100 people. So we took on all the chores, from cleaning the toilets to doing the drone watch, to every other activity on the boat that had to be done outside of running the vessel itself. All that had to be done, maintaining the security, maintaining the protocols, and preparing for that eventuality. I'm leaving it at that because I don't want to go into that detail, but it is important that you recognize that secrecy was also an issue. I was providing regular updates. Lots of people were constantly asking me, tell us where you are, what's happening, when are you going to arrive, and things like that. This is not information we wanted to volunteer. Certainly we did not want to. We were aware that we were being watched and surveilled. We did not want to make things easier for Israel in any way. So the only information we gave out was information which we knew was already in the public domain in some capacity somewhere. And then we gave things out in drips and drabs and timed it very carefully. So 30th, we start from Otranto. The journey was unimpeded. The journey would have taken us 7 days to get to Gaza. Shortly after we started, before we started, in fact, what was very nice was that there was a big group of Italians who came over to greet us. They sang songs, they greeted us, they wished us well. There were boats all around. There were lots of good wishes from there. There were lots of good wishes from all across Bangladesh and people across the globe. We had that warmth and that support and that solidarity. That was very important for us. We started, immediately after we started, there was a storm, and one of the things the captain tried to do, the two captains tried to do, was stay ahead of the storm so we would not get completely, the boat wouldn't get too badly hit by the storm. But it was very rocky, it was very turbulent, and a lot of people got very sick. Luckily for us, there was a very good medical team, because a large part of the crew of the group was actually health workers. So we had very good medical care. That wasn't a worry, but of course that was just the beginning. As we went along, we caught up with 8 other boats, small boats, which were part of the 1,000 Medellins. There were 2 other vessels, slightly bigger, behind them. Sadly, they developed mechanical problems and had to retreat. We also developed mechanical problems, but we were prepared for that. We fixed it along the way and went along. Because we traveled a lot faster, we caught up with these boats, but then we felt that it probably wasn't safe for us to leave them behind and go on our own, though that's what we'd planned originally. So we decided we would try and stay at pace with them and go together. That resulted in the anticipated date of our arrival being the 7th of October 2025. Now, Israel had already labeled us as being pro-Hamas. Had we arrived on the 7th of October, it would have given them more excuse. Regardless of the reasons for that, it would have given them more reason to justify that statement. So we decided it would be politically wise to arrive the day later. And that's what we were aiming for, arriving in Gaza on the 8th. Of course, we knew that at some point there would be attacks by Israel. There were those threats. We were prepared for it, but we didn't know exactly when. The other boats had been allowed to get reasonably close before they were attacked by Israel, and we thought that might be the case. But from the 8th onwards, we were on alert. So on the 8th night, I had by then become appointed the official photographer for the vessel. So I'd taken everyone's portraits, not for portraiture as such, but because we needed to send the images to the lawyers in Israel, so they would know who to identify and be able to defend us. Bandwidth was not great, and it was still about 3 in the morning when I was uploading those pictures. I slept on my sleeping bag close to where I was, and about an hour, about 90 minutes or so later, the sirens went, and Madeleine Habib shouted out across the microphone, "This is not a drill, we're being attacked." So we knew what to do. We immediately went up to the lower deck, collected the life vessels, did a roll call to make sure everyone was there, no one was left out. I and Hasim, another photographer, we were entrusted with filming right till the end. So we were, in a sense, the most vulnerable because we were staying nearer the place where the helicopters, or they might land from the helicopter. I started doing a live feed on Facebook, managed to do some, it cut off. I restarted it, very, very few seconds, and it cut off again. I realized that they were jamming the internet. The helicopter was above. All of a sudden, there was a huge swirl of wind and dust and water swirling all around, which also made it difficult to work. But that was the time when I knew that we had only a few seconds to go. I had already handed over my laptop to someone else who was further away from this zone. I had my phone. I threw it onto the water. The other person on cue threw the laptop onto the water, and by then, the two of us had laser beams pointing at us by the snipers. We didn't get shot, but that was the impending threat. A number of commandos in full combat gear came down from the helicopters, and some of them would have gone down, opened the hatch down below to allow other soldiers to come on. They announced, "We are the Israeli Navy." They did say, do exactly what he'll say and you will not be harmed. Whether we believe it or not is another matter. Then they surrounded all of us because we were on that lower deck, and then took us away after searching us physically, took us away and separated us in different segments. We had made certain decisions prior to that. One was we knew that they were going to film, because when we saw them, it was reaffirmed. Several of them had GoPros on their helmets. They all had night goggle binoculars. They all had guns, different types of guns, some with what looked like silencer heads. They all had sights on them. There were some women as well. The women were not in combat gear, but they all had guns. And we were all separated out. And then, we didn't really know what was happening to the other people. In our sense, we were given very, very stern instructions of what to do, how to do. And next to me were the Turkish crew who didn't understand English, so they were talking to one another in Turkish to try and explain what was happening. And one of the soldiers banged with the machine gun very loudly onto the table, and then pointed at them at short range, essentially being very, very aggressive throughout that period. But we were not physically assaulted at that time, except for occasional roughing up when we were shoved or put in one side or whatever. That journey went on for about 10.5 to 12 hours. We're not sure exactly what. But one of the things we decided we would do, because we knew we were going to be filmed throughout, and having seen what they did with the Sumud, we knew that this was also going to be a PR exercise for Israel. So they were, ironically, we were not primarily a humanitarian vessel. Our job was to be there as professionals alongside our fellow professionals and do what we as professionals needed to do. But we did not want to be a burden upon the Ghazans, so we had taken extra provisions. So if we had to stay longer, we would use our own provisions rather than be a burden on people who were already starving. It was very sad for us to see the Israeli IDF consuming what we had very carefully kept preserved for Ghazans, drinking very sparingly so we would have water left for them, which was being drunk, and the food and everything else. But that's not so important. Once we got to the port in Ashdod, then again, other people came on board. We were being searched. I'd already gotten rid of my devices, but they had rounded up all the other things, and we carried whatever we could. The remaining equipment that we had, for instance, the microphone and the gimbal that I had, was taken off me. Then we were taken down the steps. That's when the initial violence began, because we were pushed down, essentially doubled down, and had to walk down those stairs in double down position with both arms lifted way above our backs by two soldiers on another side, and a third soldier shoving us down this, and another fourth soldier pushing our head down. That came down to the tarmac, where we had to go in a kneel position, crouch down, and there we had to stay for about 2 hours or so. While that was happening, next to me was a guy called Ali from Tunisia, who had a T-shirt which said "Free Palestine," which he was told to remove. He refused to remove it, so he was beaten up. Adnan, another person who wanted to come to his rescue, tried to come forward. He too was beaten up. They were blindfolded, handcuffed, treated much more roughly than we were. And I remember, because I was next to this person, one of the soldiers saying, "Say you love Israel." He said, "No, I love Palestine." And of course, he was dropped up even further. But there was not really much we could do at that point. We then go in, we're taken in, we are logged, photographed multiple times, our equipment taken away. We were told to remove all jewelry or anything else that we had on us and put it in the bags. We later found out that all of that was missing. $300 that I had was also missing. So we know what type of moral army this is. But after that, we were being logged again. At that time, I wanted my lawyer. They said, your lawyer's not available, they're busy, and I refused to talk to them without a lawyer being present. So a lawyer did come, and he was very helpful. He told me not to sign the first two documents, because that essentially said that I had come into Israel illegally, which we had not. We had come into international waters. We'd been kidnapped. It was the kidnapping which was illegal. There was nothing that we'd done which was illegal. They then gave a third form which talked about, by Israeli law, that I could demand, what's it called? I've forgotten the term, for being sent away within deportation, thank you. Deportation within 72 hours, and my lawyer had recommended that I sign that. Some did not do that, primarily Israelis, because they were Israelis themselves, and deportation had a different meaning to them altogether. Anyway, then we are blindfolded. This time we're handcuffed behind our back. I was put in in a tiny cubicle within a bigger bus, presumably. 4 people side by side, roughly 2 feet by 5 feet, blindfolded, not able to see anything. It didn't have any windows either. Yeah, thank you. We then, it was extremely cold, like being inside a freezer. And that's how we traveled for over 2 hours. What we later discovered was the middle of the desert in Israel's most high security prison. We were then put in a cage, told to crouch on the cage, and then sent to different places. And I'm going to cut this short because there may be questions, and there are other people here. And then we had, of course, refused food, but even the ones who had agreed to have food over the 2.5 days were only given 1 meal and no water at all. Throughout that period, no one had any water. We were also, some people were roughed up. There was one person who needed medicines for his heart condition. He was denied that. And they would, in the middle of the night, at various stages, come in, storm into our cells with machine guns, with riot gear, make threatening noises. And we could hear that some people were being brutalized during that time as well, though I was not in that sense. That's as much as I want to say at that time. What did happen was, on the 10th morning, we got put in another bus. This time we were not handcuffed, we were not blindfolded, and we were in a bus together. And the bus, presumably several other buses, because this bus only accommodated about 30 or so, we were taken to the Eilat airport, where we boarded a Turkish airline plane which had been chartered specifically for us. And that was the first time we began to see everyone again, and we did a head count. We realized that some people were not there, but I'll cut short there because I think there may well be questions and other people to answer. Nayantara, over to you.
Thank you, Shahidul. Just to add that in a statement issued by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, that the Freedom Flotilla Coalition and 1,000 Madlene's Gaza reaffirmed that a ceasefire is not enough. Israel's illegal blockade must end. Gaza must be free. Palestinians must receive unhindered aid as per the binding orders of the ICJ, and all political, social, and human rights of the Palestinian people must be upheld. The full statement is on the website of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition, which is regularly updated, and I would encourage everybody to find updates there. There is a question, Shahidul, in the comments about whether you have any updates about future plans for boats and ships to participate, and what the status of the flotilla and the conscience is at present. Perhaps we could take this one question before moving on to Saleh from BDS.
We don't yet know exactly what the situation is regarding, the vessels were hijacked, so we don't know. One of the vessels, the smaller boats I know, was rammed in mid-sea, and they took the sailors onto their own vessels, and that's how they carried in. None of us know exactly what that situation is. But one of the things we did do while we were there is, this is an incredible group of people who had collected. And because we were together, we then decided we would continue this fight and we would form this broader coalition, this bigger international coalition. Hi, thank you. And that we would try and have the flotillas coming in, far more flotillas should we be able to. What we also recognized was the global effect of these flotillas being there. And that, in a sense, this was what had led to a far more unified movement across the globe, and that it was having an effect. So we've convinced ourselves, and we've committed ourselves to the fact that we will go again, we will get others to go, and that there will be waves and waves of flotilla until we break that siege. That might be a good point, because now we have the Sumud person here with us.
Mm-hmm. Great. Ibrahim Bhai, thanks for joining. You were stuck in traffic, I believe. I'm in Kathmandu, but I have that update. Are you okay to go next, or should we give you a minute or two and let you catch your breath?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay. I had introduced you as the Secretary General of the International Aid Campaign and as a member of the Sumud Flotilla on the Observer boat. So if you don't mind sharing with us your motivations, Ibrahim Bhai, for why you joined the flotilla, and a little bit about your experience in about 10 minutes, that would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me here first. And I'm very sorry I'm late. I came from Cox's Bazar and had a meeting with Maldivian High Commissioner in Dhaka, and the traffic was really bad. Sorry about that. Yeah. Why I joined Sumud Flotilla was, I'm from a humanitarian organization, and we've been working inside Gaza since 2018. We formed our organization in 2017. So since the start of our organization, Gaza has been one of our main focus. And since last Ramadan, there's been a complete siege, and our aid has been stockpiling across the borders from Rafah and also in Jordan. So that was my main motivation, our organization's main motivation to join the Sumud Flotilla. And as you all know, the global Sumud Flotilla is a coalition of 4 main movements across the globe. Global March to Gaza, and Sumud Convoy, and Sumud Nayantara, which is the main movement in Asia. So I'm representing Sumud Nayantara actually. So I was participating and in the movement as an organizer. And at first I was invited to join the training it was a training for the trainers to train the participants who would be going on the fleet. So I joined the training on August 1st, if I recall correctly. So I've been away from home since then. So After that, I went back to the Maldives, started the movement and started awareness. And there was a flag-off event from Malaysia, and from there I went straight to Tunisia because I've been there before, and we decided we'll send fleets from 4 ports, 3 from the Europe and 1 from Tunisia. And I decided to go to Tunisia with my team to help on the ground preparations and during the training, because I've done the training before, and so I could help with the training. And at first, I had no intention to go on a boat. And since I'm leading an organization, our main work has more value than me being on a boat. So I had no intention to go on a boat. I just went to help on the ground, and what I saw, like in Tunisia, was completely, like, we didn't anticipate what happened in Tunisia, to be honest, because from Barcelona, when the initial launch from the Barcelona started, after I think 4 days, we were supposed to leave from Tunisia. Like around 30 boats from Tunisia. There were 22 boats left from Barcelona, which initial plan didn't have that they would dock in Tunisia, but they decided to come into Tunisia because Tunisia was a very pro-Palestinian, is a very pro-Palestinian country, and the reception from Tunisia was great. But what we faced in Tunisia, we realized that how much influence the Zionist entity has, like in any country, because we didn't expect that in Tunisia. We thought it would be very easy. And since I was helping in the ground, I saw a lot of things that most of the participants on the boat wouldn't see. I experienced a lot of things. And from the start, I wanted to help do something on the boat, because I won't be going on a boat, but I wanted to get on a boat and do something on the boat. But I ended up helping with the security, organizing the trainings and everything. The training was very intense for all the participants. There was non-violence training, legal training, communication training. And all these trainings are vital because we are facing the most immoral army in the world. And any act from a participant or any word from a participant could be perceived as a threat, and which could result in fatalities like what we faced in Maui Marmara. And since I ended up helping with the security, I came face to face with a lot of infiltrations. I saw many people walking around, like creating fear in the hearts of participants that the boats are not safe. And also, like during the initial stages, we checked around 200 boats to survey. And from Tunisia, what we faced was there was a lot of bureaucratic challenges, that a lot of boats we surveyed, and when it came to the point of purchase, the owners declined the offer, citing that they have been threatened by people. People visited their homes. So that the security issue was a main thing. There were people who came into the training that there was one incident that I was made aware of, that a UK citizen, just like 3 days before the sale, a UK citizen came into the training hall, and like he was very agitated, very aggressive. He really wanted to get on a boat. So we sent the passport to the Tunisian police, and we found out that he came into Tunisia through a port immigration on the night that Barcelona boats came in. He wasn't from a Barcelona boat, but he came in through a port immigration. And his stories didn't match up, and he said he was from a Palestinian descent. We checked his background, and he had criminal records, gang affiliations in the UK. So these challenges, actually, we didn't anticipate it that much in Tunisia, which led, say, a 10-day delay from the initial launch date from Tunisia. So that was my like wake moment for me, because we really don't think about how much influence and how much power they actually have, the Zionist entity, in our community, in our daily life. We don't know who we are hanging out with, who we are sharing information with. And from that point, like I didn't post. I stopped posting on my social media, stopped sharing with people the information I get, and actually like withdrew myself a lot from the crowd, and started realizing what the magnitude of the situation, actually experienced it beforehand, like seeing people face to face, the infiltrations. And yeah, then after like just before 2 days of the sale, I got an invitation to join one of the observer boards, which had steering committee members and the observers, like organizers on the board, to help with the small boats who are going. There were 5 boats that held back in Italy, and every port we go, we had setbacks. There was delayed in processing paperwork, fueling, and everything. So we from Tunisia to Italy and Greece, every port we faced these problems. So there's no country actually safe from their influence. And our board decided that we would flank the main fleet near the Egyptian waters. At the time of interception, we could withdraw into Egypt, but Egypt didn't allow our boat to go in. And from the Malaysian authorities, we got the information that if we go in, only the Malaysians will be safe to go from Alexandria port to the airport. They will get safe passage. Everyone else will be arrested. So we diverted to Cyprus. And the observer boat, we wanted to keep it for the brothers' fleet, 1000 Medellin and Freedom Flotilla boats. There were people associated with FFC as well on our boat. So we kept that boat in Cyprus, but still that boat is stuck in Cyprus. The paperwork didn't process and all these things. So yeah, so I think my main point is that we should be aware, and we should actually make an effort to know the enemy within our community and our reality.
Thank you for that, Ibrahim Bhai. We will come back to both you and Shahidul, hopefully, if we have time. But I just wanted to now invite in Saleh, who is from BDS, and Saleh and Apurva are kindly joining us from an airport at the moment. And so it's really great to have you with us, Saleh. Saleh is the movement policy coordinator at BDS. BDS, as we all know, of course, the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement is a Palestinian-led movement for freedom, justice, and equality, founded in 2005. So this is the 20th year. It is a vibrant global movement made up of unions, academic associations, churches, and grassroots movements across the world. And it has had a significant impact and is effectively challenging international support for Israeli apartheid and settler colonialism. In this conversation today, Saleh, we just wanted to request you to share a little bit in the current moment what BDS is working on, what the current calls are, because really our attention is really needs to be on the work that lies ahead as well.
Thank you, Nayantara. Can you hear me? And I apologize for if there's a lot of background noise.
Not at all. We can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm with my colleague Apurva here in Jakarta Airport, going to Malaysia. And we're here basically to meet with our partners in Indonesia and Malaysia, BDS Indonesia and BDS Malaysia, to support the work that they're doing here and across the region. And I have to say, it's really great also to be joining an event where we have friends and comrades and colleagues from Nepal, Bangladesh, the Maldives, and perhaps also others joining online. It is ever so crucial that we have this mobilization in Asia for meaningful solidarity with the Palestinian people and towards the dismantling of Israel's settler colonial regime of apartheid and genocide. And really, I want to send salutes to Shahidul and Ibrahim and all who were on the flotilla, attempting to break the siege on Gaza, to perhaps create, and this is something I guess would be good to work towards, a humanitarian corridor, because while we have a ceasefire, and that is, of course, very important, the visible form of genocide may have stopped temporarily, hopefully, for more time, but that a less visible form of genocide will indeed continue. I live in the occupied West Bank, and we have, see on a daily basis how Israel's apartheid continuously also is entrenched. I think what was important also about the flotilla is that it contributed to the isolation of Israel. And this takes me to what is important and what the BDS is doing. That, while the people on the flotilla went and took action on the sea, every one of us, everyone around the world from where they are, can take action to hold Israel accountable towards the liberation of Palestine by ensuring that any links of complicity with Israel are ended. This is what the BDS movement is about. It is about looking locally to see what direct or indirect links of complicity exist and to campaign and organize through people power to end these links of complicity. These could be direct, like direct links with Israel, Israeli companies, or indirect, as having links with institutions or corporations that are complicit in Israel's crimes, including apartheid and genocide. And so, apologies, I have to be very short because we have to jump on a flight very soon. But I invite everybody to join the BDS movement, to look at where you are, where you have in your schools, in universities, at your state level, government level, parliament level, where action could be taken to further isolate Israel. Israel is isolated like never before. The Israeli war criminal Netanyahu spoke to his people a few weeks ago to say that the isolation is unprecedented, calling on Israel to prepare to become a super Sparta. This is because we see a momentum of sanctions rising. This could be seen through, for example, the Hague group of states, including South Africa, Namibia, Malaysia, Colombia, Bolivia, and others who came together to say that we will uphold our obligations under international law to ensure that there are no arms that are sent to Israel, that we will not allow any arms or dual-use items such as energy to be transferred to Israel, and that we will hold up our obligations to ensure that there is accountability and an end to Israel's impunity. These states met again in Bogota in Colombia last July, where more have joined. So I invite everybody here in Bangladesh, in Nepal, in the Maldives, and elsewhere to also call on your governments to join the Hague Group and ensure that this momentum for sanctioning Israel and further isolating it becomes more and more of a reality, and bringing the Palestinian South Africa movement, if you want, ever closer. Some of the things that we have been doing here in, for example, Indonesia, is calling on Indonesia to close down its territorial waters and ports to any Israeli ships or ships that are destined to Israel. We're also calling on Indonesia to lead the way, along with Malaysia and others, to expel Israel from the United Nations, just like apartheid South Africa was expelled from the United Nations in 1973, as it should be also expelled from FIFA, the Olympics, and other international fora. So the flotilla, the BDS, and these actions should, we should build more to further isolate the prior state of Israel and ensure that it is held accountable for genocide, for apartheid, until these are dismantled and Palestinians can enjoy our inalienable rights to self-determination, and for the Palestinian refugees to enjoy their right to return to their homes they were forcibly expelled from in 1948 and 1967, and continuously through this ongoing Nakba. So again, apologies, it's short. It was really great to be with you. Great honor to be along with Shahidul and Ibrahim and all of you. And thanks very much for involving us. I hope that we continue this conversation and see how we continue to organize and mobilize. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saleh, for joining us even from the airport. It is really special to be able to connect even through Zoom and, you know, all these means to continue to build on the very important work that BDS has done for 20 years and all these other new efforts now. Thanks again for joining us. And definitely we hope to keep in touch and continue to do things together. Fly safe.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. We will move back to, of course, the room in Dhaka now. I wonder if anyone there in the room has any questions or thoughts to share. We could go to a few questions from the floor, but I would also like to invite Shahidul and Ibrahim Bhai to both also respond to this sort of what now moving forward and share with us any actions or involvements on their part that many of us could join as well. So perhaps if questions to the room and then to Shahidul and Ibrahim Bhai again.
Just checking, Nayantara, there might be questions online as well. It's worth looking to see if there are any.
I believe we're doing okay online. So, yeah.
Any questions from the floor? Please, if you could introduce yourself first.
Hi, my name is Taruz Tayan. My question is more about psychological impact of everyone in the flotilla and what they've been through. We have seen immense videos on Instagram and other social media, the kind of violence that Gazans have gone through. But my question is, to be in a position to face such immense threat, how does one keep calm and keep their morale high when the threat could lead to fatality? And also to keep in mind to not be aggressive in defense, because that could trigger their response as well. That is my question. Another part is that what does it do afterwards? After a situation like that, how do you feel psychologically, if there's any PTSD or any trauma residue afterwards?
Would you like to do that? I'm happy to take it on. But... Okay, it's a very pertinent question. Firstly, within our team, we actually had psychiatrists and psychologists as well. And this is specifically something that we were told to do. One of the things we strategically decided to do was to, as much as possible, avoid any sort of physicality in our response, because that would provide an excuse. Not that they need much of an excuse, but that would be one. The other was that even in the way in which we responded, make sure that it is happening in a manner which is seen to be less threatening. Interestingly enough, in my reading, one of the things we were aware of was the fact that they were very scared. They had guns. These are young kids with guns who are actually very scared. And anything you do can trigger things in their response. So even within the jail, we are unarmed people within cells, completely defenseless. They moving around as if we are a threat to them of some sort raises that tension. And one of the things we did, for instance, was we decided, we'd worked out which areas they might have gone onto the ship on. And therefore, what we decided was that the people who would face them would be less threatening people. So probably women, probably elderly women, who would seem to be less of a threat to them, and people who were more muscular, perhaps, or taller, or perhaps someone they might be threatened by would stay at the back as a deliberate ploy. If someone is getting attacked, it's very difficult to stay calm and not respond. But those were things we were looking at, that, okay, if there is a certain degree of violence, we will not retaliate as such. If there is, we actually had training on de-escalation, on what to say, on how to say, who to say to, provided exit possibilities. But we do definitely have the concern of what has happened. For us, really, the biggest concern was when people went missing. Yeah, when we knew, for instance, that Ali and Adnan had been brutalized, when we didn't see them, that was our big concern. And else, in other situations as well, we had decided we would go on hunger strike, but there were people who did need food and water, but they weren't getting it either. So how to make those demands, but make those demands in a manner which did not lead to further violence, for instance. But I must also admit that we had found interesting ways. I mean, it's interesting group of people, and we found interesting ways to protest. So one of the problems was the toilet. I mean, the toilet was really very, very bad, but some did not have them at all. So at one stage, we were in cell 12. In the middle cell, we suddenly heard a song going on the Bella Ciao tune being sung. We want toilets, we want toilets, we want toilets now, and the whole thing being chanted out. And then all of us joined in this song, which went across the jail, and the sound carried through to the counselors, the consul people who we knew were visiting, and we did actually get them moved. We didn't get a toilet fixed, but we got them moved to another cell which had a working toilet. So there were many ways in which things can be done, and we were trying them all. But yes, what you're saying is very, very true. And not knowing what is happening, not knowing what might happen next, not knowing what the future might be. And in particular, a fellow, a guy called Muhammad Ali, his nickname was Liaquat. He's of Bangladeshi origin, but born and brought up a British citizen. He had joined, his boat was the boat that was rammed, well, one of the boats that was rammed. And he was telling me that when he was there and crouching, there was a soldier coming up to him to say, we know you're Hamas. As soon as you go to jail, you'll be shot. So these are things that are being said to people at various stages. And that is also part of the strategy. And then when you're blindfolded, you're in there and you're there for 2 hours, you don't know what's happening. It's freezing. You don't know whether you should protest or not, what will happen if you do. All of those things mount up. And I'm sure some of it will leave permanent scars, but we did a lot of training beforehand, preparing for these possibilities. So that perhaps, and I think it was quite well organized. One of the things we did, as soon as they landed from the helicopters, we got together and we started saying, we are journalists, we are medics, we are journalists, we are medics. That was also not merely reinforcing it amongst us, but we knew we were being filmed. So this would be on record, that we are actually saying we're journalists, we're medics. So if they do something, they cannot claim not knowing, for instance. So there were multiple strategies of that sort. You had a question?
Welcome back, Shahidul Bhai. My name is Tahitun. I am a community organizer in New York, in the Bronx. My question is actually regarding kind of thinking through this moment we're in and centering Palestinians, right? And even though there has been the ceasefire, how do we actually ensure that these terms and conditions that Israel has been forced to agree to are actually withheld? How do we really ensure that on a local level, national level, international level? I'm curious about that. Also, I'm actually curious about, you know, the jails and prisons that you folks were taken to. Was there any intersection with Palestinian prisoners who were held in those facilities? I'm just curious about, was there any sort of, you know, exchange there?
Do you want to take it on? Yeah. Okay. Well, firstly, within the jail itself, there was no information given. So I can only tell in terms of what I saw. There were Palestinians within our group as well, but that's not the Palestinians you're referring to, presumably, yeah? So we know that this is one of their the highest security prison that they have, and it is very likely that we thought, you know, Marwan Barghouti might be there and other people might be there, but in our own space, we did not have a way of knowing until we were put in cages when we got together and we knew who else was there. Certainly people from the previous Sumud was there, we were there, but we did not see anyone else. As we went along, we did see the women. They'd been separated, but we saw them and we shouted out and greeted them. But that too, one had to be wary of. I can only describe what I went through. So as the vehicle goes through, we then are walked through a fairly broad gravel path. And on the outside, there's obviously much more to the prison. Immediately next to us was a 30-foot concrete wall. We are taken past that concrete wall, and then you have 2 rows of 10 big cells, each of which have 20-foot walls, 20 to 21, something like that. When you go in, there are another row of, each one has another set of 10 by 2. So essentially 400 units, and each unit had room for 8 people. So 3,200 people would be accommodated within that space. We made up 150 or so or less. So obviously there were many other people, but we had no contact with them. We could not communicate with them in any way. And it was very clearly segregated. We were taken out, put in those little cages. Part of it was also to degrade and insult. So for instance, in the cage itself, there were benches on the side. And we, naturally, when we went in, we sat in. So we were told to get off the benches and crouch on the floor. While there's seating space, this is what you're meant to do. And these people come in, they're standing, we're crouching down, we're handcuffed. At that time, the blindfolds had been taken off, but that's, you know, that dominance is certainly reinforced at every level. The answer is we don't know, but certainly given that it could accommodate 3,200, it's certainly very likely that they were there as well. Others were there as well. 1 and 2, yeah?
I've been given the mic.
Did I miss a part of your question?
Just ensuring that the terms of the ceasefire.
Okay, yeah, thank you, thank you. Do you want to take that? Yeah? Okay. Extremely important issue, and I think the flotilla itself was part of that process, because exerting that pressure is the only thing that will make a difference. And clearly, international leaders, global leaders, the West and many of the Gulf countries have sold out in this situation. We cannot rely on them. Western media has completely sold out. I think this is the time to point our fingers at them, to hold them culpable, and add pressure not only on Israel itself, but their collaborators. And one of the things that has happened is this movement has actually led to a resistance across the globe that is unprecedented. The fact that Professor Yunus, the chief advisor of Bangladesh, came up with such a strong statement. Prior to that, Tariq Rahman had made a public statement. These are important things to do, particularly when other global leaders are playing a very different role. One of the flotilla people in the UK was arrested in Britain once he got back. So, I mean, you can see how stark that difference is. But this pressure is mounting, and it's making a difference. In Amsterdam, having 2 million people in a place like Amsterdam is big. It's never happened to that extent before. And we need to keep that pressure. And we, as a collective, have already, within the flotillas, decided that we will continue to ride, and there has to be 1,000 boats in there. One good thing about what we did, we certainly weren't able to get to Gaza, but because we kept them so busy, Gazan fishermen, for the first time after many, many years, were able to fish. So that's something. You had a question. Mike, Okane, please.
Thank you so much. So I am Munima Maharin, and I write a bit of a poet and do some activism. So from your experience, I would like to ask everybody, working across photography, could be activism and policy and humanitarian actions. What do you think are the biggest challenges in making sure that the voices of actually the ordinary Palestinians who are actually going through the traumas and displacement is genuinely being heard and represented? And I ask this also because through my work in also mental health and art, and how can we as a collective actually ensure that their stories aren't overshadowed by what we have seen, that official narratives, media noises, and political language, and instead actually reach people's heart, you know what I mean? So how we can actually, what do you think, collectively do to really overshadow these noises?
Well, I'll keep it open, but I think it is really up to every individual to do what he or she can do to the maximum that we're capable of. Because this is a moment in history which we have to answer to for future generations. What did you do? How did you allow this to happen? And we have, to a large extent, allowed it to happen. So, I mean, there are many people. You wrote a very powerful poem which I read out on the boat, which was very important for us. One of the things you said within that poem was, does it matter? And in fact, that's a question we have to ask. There are people who say, what's the point of going out to Gaza? You never actually did anything. But I know what it meant to Gazans. And I look back at myself. If I were in that situation and I felt the world had forgotten me, just reminding me that the world has not forgotten, I think is an important message. And I think we are talking a lot about what we did, what happened to us. Essentially, the story should be about the people in Palestine, about amplifying their voices, making sure that what they say, what they're through, what they're experiencing is heard, and heard in such terms, with such volume, that it cannot be ignored. And I think the time for talk has gone. I think it is very much time for action. We need to ensure that our governments are answerable, and we need to ensure that they do it. But I must also mention at this time, I think a global shift has taken place. There is an awareness that was never there to this extent, and that will not go away, particularly amongst the youth. And I think that's very powerful. Please.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening, sir. Alhamdulillah that you are safe and sound, we've got you back. So first, I got some few questions, very small. First of all, your global Sumud Flotilla, is that connected with Michael Sheikh, who started that, the fleet at Gaza? And second of all, how did you get the courage, to do such a thing? So one thing is, you had lots of friends and comrades and so many people been with you. You survived, and lots of people didn't survive. I don't know how many people still are missing. Any updates from them? And finally, after you, if anyone else from Bangladesh or from South Asia, or any other place on the world, wants to join this flotilla, what he or she has to do? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Do you want to answer the one about the origin?
Origin of Sumud is like the FFC, the Freedom Flotilla Coalition. That is the original flotilla movement. And there was another movement, Global Sumud Convoy, which was the land convoy that started from the Maghreb, the North Africa, and Global March to Gaza. That was from air. Everyone went to Egypt to try to march to Rafah and Sumud Nusantara. So Global Sumud Flotilla consists of these four movements. So the origin is the FFC, which started in 2008, I believe, not as a Freedom Flotilla Coalition, but the ship to Gaza, the first fleet ship was called Ship to Gaza, I think.
Okay, in answer to your other questions, I actually think if I didn't go, I would find it very difficult to live with myself knowing I had not gone. Because as a human being, to see this happening to someone else and to not have gone would have left a deep scar in me. I don't think I had a choice. How to go was the question in my case, because it was not a public call or of any form and whatever. And I was lucky, I suppose. Lucky, in terms of timing, because I only found out on the 23rd that this was happening. And by the 25th, I'd managed to actually get enlisted, if you like. And there is justifiably a serious vetting process. Luckily, I was known well enough to be accepted. The last question, I don't really have an answer to, but we are trying to put something together. The problem there is something that he mentioned, because there needs to be a lot of vetting because it can get infiltrated. And therefore, one has to be very careful. To give you a little example, this gentleman, Muhammad Liaquat Ali from Britain, who went, he and three other friends, they bought a boat for 28,000 euro, with which they were going to go. And Sumud actually said, we'll take your boat, we can't guarantee you a place. Yeah? And in fact, in the end, only one of those people could get on it, despite the fact that they had actually provided the boat themselves. Yeah? So it's not easy. Again, in answer to your question, he, along with Yassin, the person who told me about the asking too many questions, had actually gone to several mosques. And he said, clearly, yeah, people were concerned, they were prepared to give money, but no one was prepared to come with us. And it's understandable, people are scared. There are dangers, there are risks. But we have taken risks. In 2024, people came to the streets taking huge risks. In 1971, we took risks. This is no less a moment. Just because it's far away does not make it less important. I think our Constitution says that we need to be by the oppressed everywhere, but there is that statement. Oppression anywhere is oppression on us. And unless we really believe that, we are lesser human beings. Any other questions? Please. Okay, acha. Ota hoye jak tarpor okhane. Please.
Assalamu alaikum. I teach
Ekhane
at
chilo,
Dhaka
Thank
University.
you.
And my name is
I'll
Tasneem
come
Mahbub.
and then.
I came late for some unavoidable reasons, so I don't know whether you have already covered it or not. Your fellow comrades, all of them were arrested. So where are they now? What is their current situation?
Okay. So it happened in three levels. We had been given very strict instructions by the lawyers, and not everyone responded in the same way. So the people who did not sign the third were the people who stayed the longest. The people who were let loose the first were the parliamentarians. There were several parliamentarians who were in our group. They left on the night of the 9th, and well, 9th, late afternoon, I think, they were at home, or they were in Istanbul by the 9th. And in fact, they greeted us when we got to Istanbul. We were released on the 10th morning and arrived in Istanbul on the 10th afternoon. And yeah, thank you. 88 were released, and then I think the last group have now been released. So everyone in that group has now been released, which includes some from the original Sumud who we met up with. They had actually been in jail for over a week, around a week. So now all of us are out.
Welcome home. Very proud of you. And if anybody from Bangladesh could have gone on this, I think it was you. You're the most, I think, the right person to have gone. But the question was, I think it just comes from my ignorance. You said something about lawyers in Israel who would be you asked for a lawyer. How did that come about? Did you have somebody allocated, or did you know someone you had contacted beforehand?
There was a lot of homework done before this trip, and there is a legal group of Palestinian lawyers in Israel. It's a human rights organization. These are human rights lawyers who do this constantly. And there's a whole very large number of lawyers. And what we'd done is we'd sent profiles, pictures, all of that well in advance so they could prepare. And when we arrived, we met the first lawyer. I met the first lawyer on the night of the 8th when I was taken to the port, at the port itself. Then the next lawyer came on the 9th morning to the jail itself, where there was a judge. So when I was speaking to the judge, a lawyer was present. And they told me that they had made their deposition. They told me what the deposition was. They advised us on what we should say and what we shouldn't say, and what was with us at that time. They were very, very alert and a very well-organized group. Adala, thank you, the group. তার আগে আরেকটা বোধহয় ছিল না? হ্যাঁ, ওনার ছিল, তারপর আপনার কাছে আসি।
Assalamu alaikum. I had a question, like Mr. Saleh mentioned from BDS movement about the Hague group, and you mentioned that the time for talk is over and action requires. So my question is in regards to Hague group, like how can they be brought into more practical position where more action can be taken as per?
I don't have a simple answer, but I think at the end of the day, it boils down to us. What do we do? Because politicians will always be politicians. And the only time they will really respond is that they're forced to respond. So it is up to us. What was very interesting is when they mentioned the Hague Group, India is part of that group. And if we are in a situation where India itself decides that it will take action against Israel, that is peer pressure that it has to respond to, which I find very interesting. Please. Hey, connect the mic.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Anusha. I'm a filmmaker. My question to you is, do you have the documentation on the ship when the Israeli Navy, they were coming in, or was it all confiscated? Or do you have any documentation that's on the ship, and will you ever share that with the public?
I tried to document as much as I could. I was I planned, I think, quite intelligently in terms of what I took and what I didn't. And most of what I was doing went directly onto the cloud as much as I could. I've checked since. I do not have everything. So the last images are not there, except for what I was able to do live on Facebook. that tiny little clip is there, but my memory is there. And certainly I've been writing. They did take away my notebook as well. So as soon as I got back, I started writing, at least so the initial thoughts will be there. But what we also want to do is, it's a collective memory. Now, here's the people on Sumud, the people on ours, the people on the boats, and of course, every chance I got, I interviewed, talked to other people, tried to take down what I could. And yes, it needs to be, oral history is also history. So I think it is something that can be constructed in that sense, but there is a fair amount of visual material. And I was able to upload some material which I've just had confirmation that it's there. I will be able to retrieve it. So I've lost some, but most of it is there, at least mine. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, Shahidul bhai, and welcome back from me and my niece, my 15-year-old niece, who has been following your journey. So this question is actually from her. What was the most defining moment during your entire flotilla journey? And also, do you think international media coverage differ from what have you seen in Gaza or Israel, the actual situation? Thank you.
Well, we did not see Gaza as such. All we saw, we went past, we saw the gas fields, and we know why Gaza is so important for these people. So we were so close, but not quite there. In terms of the defining moment, for me, it was Ali sitting next to me when he said, I love Palestine. He was being brutalized. And his clothes were torn. You could see things had happened to him. But he stayed there. And he said, he was told to say, I love Israel. And he said, I love Palestine. That is something we have to respect. And, you know, at the end of the day, as human beings, we cannot move away from that. Sorry.
Yeah. During my time in the organizing level, I met so many courageous people who've been on previous flotillas. Like I met Janet, who was on the only women's boat, went on 2016. She has a 10-year ban, and she was deported for 10 years. And as people, like, I realized from the time I stepped into the training room on the first day, I realized like there was 150 to 200 people. And everyone in the room was so pure at heart, and everyone in the room was willing to give their life, lay down their life for the rights of the people they have never met. And so many females I've met who've been harassed, abused sexually in jails of Israel. And for me, like, it was a question that the sister asked, that, like, how do you deal psychologically? Like, I haven't been there, I haven't seen that, but to hear the stories of people I've actually met and talked, had laughed with, and shared meals with, and when they share their stories, it rages. Like, I don't know if I could actually, maybe I'm not strong enough to go on a boat and actually face these brutalities, because I don't think I can just sit quiet and not do anything. So a salute to all the comrades who've been on the boat and who's actually faced the brutalities, and actually it is great strength to withhold your emotions and in the face of their brutality, and I salute you, brother.
আমি একটু আলোচনাটাকে অন্যদিকে সরি
নিজের পরিচয়টা দিন
হ্যাঁ my name is Shirin Haq and I'm a rights activist in Bangladesh. I would like to start the conversation about what all of us can do. And there has been a movement called the BDS movement for many, many years, which is about boycott, divestment, and sanctions. And I think we already have public notification of all the corporations and companies that are complicit with the Israeli government in the attack not only on Gaza but also the West Bank and etc. etc. And I find it amazing that a lot of people here are still drinking Coca-Cola, are still drinking Sprite. I was at a meeting today organized by the UNDP and they had served Coca-Cola and Sprite and I had to make a big fuss about it. But that's what we have to do. We have to all start living in a way that we are not complicit with what is going on. And this list is, I've seen the list in online, but I think maybe one of the things we can do is also publicize the list of products that people are consuming in Bangladesh.
You will see that list as you walk into Drik. There's two big banners with, it might not have everything, but certainly it has the major ones. What it also has is the list of many of the people who died. Yeah. In 2023, I did an exhibition at the UN in Geneva, which listed the journalists who'd been killed up till that point. It was about 1,602. That was over 30 years. That list has been blown out since then. The next time we updated that, it was almost entirely Palestinians. They're the ones who are dying every day. So very much true. And I did mention that it is time for action. And when I say action, action at every level. Not drinking from a Coke bottle is part of that action. And I think this could happen at every level. And I think we need to constantly ask ourselves, have I done enough? And what else can I do? Any other questions? I think it's been, you have another one? Let me take a person there and I'll come back to you.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. So I am Monir, I'm based in Dhaka. So my question is to you, sir. So do you have any plan to publish any book or regarding the whole that you have been through and your comrades have been through?
I do write, and I'm writing right now. I've got photographs. Certainly, I hope to put something together. But right now, I think I want to concentrate on the immediate action that needs to happen. And this pressure needs to go on. And so I want to get back there. And I think we all need to constantly hammer away until Palestine is free. That has to be our quest. These things will happen. We will record in history. It will stay on human record. But those are things for later. I think right now, the killing has to stop. And despite the ceasefire, and I do not believe these people, Trump and Blair being in charge of a ceasefire, I mean, come on. What does that mean? Yours.
So I just wanted to ask about what you brought up, Ibrahim, about this infiltration that happens in movement spaces all around the world. We've seen it in the US with like the CIA getting into Black Panthers. We're seeing it right now in the US as well because there's a propaganda war that's going on, right? Rewriting the history of what's been going on in the past 2 years and the past 75 years. I'm curious to hear from you all who are organizing internationally about how do we ensure trust, transparency, accountability in this fight for Palestinian justice, as well as how do we fight against these systems of propaganda that are part of this fight that we're in, being that some of the richest billionaires are also buying social media companies, right? And so rewriting and preventing us from even being able to witness what's been going on. And the third part of my question is in regards to this global Sumud Flotilla, as well as this global movement for Palestinian justice. How many, countries are part of it? I was just in South Korea earlier this year. There's a huge movement in South Korea for Palestinian rights. How do we involve comrades and allies in places that might be organizing on a really small scale, but also bring them into the global conversation? Thank you.
First of all, I think we need to be really loud and firm. So they would know. I think during the training also, the participants go through that. How do you face the IOF? Like if you're a female and if you feel the threat of sexual harassment or assault, what do? Like, you don't shy away from it. You just confront it. Like, you don't look down. You just stare into it, and you let them know that you're ready for what's about to happen. So, in our community, I think we need to be loud and clear and very firm on our beliefs and what we stand for the rights of Palestinians. So, in that way, like, we could hopefully filter away the unwanted people in our circle. And to continue doing, like you said, we need to keep a pressure on right now. That is the most important thing. And we cannot trust these people. And until Palestine is free, we need to keep the pressure on. The ceasefire is just a pause on the genocide inside Gaza. West Bank is still going to be the same, and Gaza, even with before October 7, 2023, has been under siege since 2007, and everything that goes in is like, as an aid provider inside Gaza, we know how much restrictions we have. They even count the calories that goes in. They just keep the Gazans barely alive. When they need, they squeeze the tube, and people start dying. That's how they've created the system, and how tight they've been on Gaza. So I think collectively we need to connect with every country, even in global Sumud Flotilla. Bangladesh was part of the Sumud Nusantara, and I don't understand why there was no public announcement as this.
There was a Bangladeshi, again, like Muhammad Ali, there was a Bangladeshi woman called Ruhi who was on one of the observer flotillas. She did contact me. They both didn't go as far as the main fleet, so and they had some problems on the boat as well, so they went back before that. But she was there, and there was this other gentleman, so there were actually 3 people of Bangladeshi origin in the whole thing, 2 Brit Bangladeshis and myself. But I will go back to the original thing. I think, we need to be pushing to the hilt everywhere, whatever we can. And at the end of the day, even with all of that, we might fail. But at least we know we did what we could. And until we've done that, we really are not in a position to be talking about what if. At the end of the day, each one of us has to know that I have done as much as I possibly could. What else can you do? But again, in reference to that, we did strategize, we worked out. One of the things we need to recognize is tyrants have all copied from each other's playbook. Yeah? India has copied from the Israeli playbook. And they are very good at replicating those things. We have failed in uniting ourselves. And perhaps this is the time when we forget these borders, we work within our communities, across our communities. we do not always recognize our own agency, the strength that we have. In Bangladesh, who would have thought Hasina would have fallen like that when she did? Yet, young people came to the streets. We were able to bring down a regime as powerful as Sheikh Hasina. If we can do that here, we can do that elsewhere. Nayantara, I think over to you, because we're doing a lot of talking here.
Thank you both so much, and for allowing me to remotely moderate in this manner. It's truly amazing to be reminded of how many ways there are for us to actually come together. Really appreciate and salute both of your involvement, participation in the flotillas. As Shireen Appa rightly said, we can be doing so much, and we need to be doing everything we can right here at home. BDS runs many campaigns, and for us here in Nepal, because we are an attractive tourist destination for Israeli tourists and have been for a very long time, many of whom even in the last 2 years have been coming in between active duty in Gaza for R&R. The Nepali government still has not done anything about not allowing Israeli tourists in. Of course, there are calls also that it is not about passports, because we do recognize that many Palestinians also hold Israeli passports because they have to. But there are efforts here. BDS has launched a global tourism movement called No Room for Genocide. That information is available on their website. There is, each of us as institutions, we can join and declare to be an apartheid-free zone. So that is another campaign that BDS invites any and all of us to join. And before leaving, Saleh and Apurva did ask me to share with you that if anyone, either in the room there or online, is interested to be a part of any of these campaigns, to invite them to speak about it for their communities, that they would be very happy to be in touch. So happy to pass their contact information on, and they're extremely accessible despite being super busy. Thank you all for being there in the room. I just want to close now that we've been together for a little over an hour and a half with a comment that has been shared by a common friend of ours, Shahidul Yasmin Sabak, who is a Palestinian artist and researcher, and who we have had the privilege of working with over the past 1 year for a festival we run here. And I think it's such a good reminder to close with, because, you know, she says that after the releases that were announced today, there will still be more than 8,000 hostages in Israeli torture dungeons, Palestinian hostages, and some of them have been there for more than 39 years. There has been important documentation of all forms of abuses, also specifically against women and children, Palestinian women and children, but they are forgotten in the media. And just in closing, this real reminder that we should all feel the duty to inform ourselves about Palestinian hostages, about Palestinian life and dignity, and ask for their release and mobilize in whatever capacities we can, wherever we stand. So with that, I thank you and send you all love and solidarity from Kathmandu, and hopefully see you in Dhaka soon, Shahidul, and hopefully maybe in the Maldives, Ibrahim Bhai.
And to a free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. Free Palestine. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. From the river to the sea. Palestine will be free. Thank you, everyone.